Today I'm going to go through the top 10 stock trout summer trout fishing tips to help you catch more trout. What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now summers are all about fireworks, hot dogs, and getting out there on those long days to go catch some trout, especially stock trout. Now I love chasing stock trout in the summer on those early morning days. The sun is just getting up, there's a cool breeze on the water, and there's just an absolute top water bite going. And today I've got just the 10 tips to help you catch more stock trout in the summertime, starting with tip number 10. And tip number 10 has to do with baits, and that is fishing with bright baits. We're talking about chartreuse, pink, orange, red. You got your copper blades, your silver blades, your gold blades, anything with a lot of bling and a lot of color. That's what you want to be fishing with. And when you're a fly fisherman, you want to have those reds, those greens, and those yellows and browns definitely for sure when it comes to fishing for stock trout. But you want brighter baits as the fish start to go into those deeper waters. Your baits are less visible the farther they go down under the water. So you're going to need brighter baits and more bling to get the trout's attention in those deeper waters. I'm talking anywhere between 10 feet all the way down to 60, even 100 feet, depending on the body of water that you're fishing. And plus, one of the advantages with brighter baits in the summertime is that the trout can see those baits from farther away. They're going to be curious. They're going to hear that noise potentially, like from a spinner. Stock trout are definitely going to be interested. They're going to be looking for a nibble and an easy bite. Now, tip number 9 also has to do with baits, and that is to size up your baits. And maybe there is such a thing, but maybe there isn't such a thing as go big or go home when it comes to summer baits to catch stock trout. Now, in cooler waters, you want to go with smaller baits, but in those warmer waters, you want as big a bait as possible. Now, I'm talking about power bait, I'm talking about bigger spinners, maybe plugs, bigger flies. You're going to want bigger gear to get the trout's attention, and they're going to be feeding all throughout the summertime. Even those holdover stock trout from the spring, they're going to want to feed real big, and they're going to want a big meal. So going with a bigger bait is going to be your advantage when you hit the water. So as you're heading out there for this summer, you want to go with bigger baits, and even bigger night crawlers is a thing as well. There are different sizes of worms that you can fish out there. You want to go big as possible when it comes to fishing worms or any bait that you're going to throw out there. So remember, when it gets hot, size up those baits. Now, tip number 8 has to do with water, and that is to go find the cooler pockets and the cooler water to go chase trout. When it comes to temperature, think about this. Trout definitely do not bite as well, especially when it's super cold, but they also don't bite when it's super hot, and they want to find those cooler waters because there's going to be more bait, there's going to be more oxygen, and there's going to be more comfort for them to hang out in those cooler pockets of water. So as you're going out to chase stock trout, you definitely want to find those cooler pockets of water because the trout are going to congregate and hold out in those particular areas, and depending on the body of water that you're fishing, you might find really small pockets that hold a ton of fish because there's more oxygen, there's more food, and the water is just cooler than other places on the lake or the pond or wherever you're fishing. Now, one thing I do before making my first cast each time out is to go put my hand in the water to see what temperature the water is, or if I'm trolling in the boat, obviously I have the electronics and use the fish finder to find out what temperature the water is where I'm trolling. So as you're planning your day of fishing, you want to go find that cooler water. It's going to give you the best opportunity to catch a trout. Now, coming in at tip number 7 is to make the bait spicy. And I'm talking about adding in some sauce and some attractants like garlic, corn, anise, crawfish, or crayfish, depending on where you live. You want to add attractants that are going to add some spice, that are going to add some flavor to your baits, as well as make it punchy and spicy. And that's for a couple reasons. One, in the warmer times of the year, the scent in the water spans out even farther. So trout can smell those scents from farther distances away, which means you got a better shot at catching some stock trout when you add attractants. And you want to go with those spicier flavors and attractants because they're going to be able to be smelled from farther distances away, which means my go-tos are really garlic. There's still corn, which is a staple. Nightcrawler is another good scent as well, and crayfish, crawfish, whatever you want to call it, that's another good one that's really spicy. And as trout are mulling around, they're starting to feed in that summertime on crayfish and crawfish, so adding that scent could be a definite bonus. Now, how much attractant should you put on your bait? Think of it like you're eating spicy wings. Do you want the whole bottle of sauce, or do you want a little dabble of sauce on your wing? And that's how I would think about adding those attractants to your bait. You want a little, you don't want the whole bottle. Now, coming in at tip number 6 has to do with the water, and that is to find the thermocline. Now, the thermocline is that layer of the water in lakes or ponds where you have the hot water and the warm water meeting the cool water. This is the layer that has a lot of oxygen, a lot more food, and as you're trolling around in particular, you're gonna be able to find where that thermocline is on your lake or your favorite body of water, and that's where you're gonna wanna target the trout. And on any lake or body of water, the thermocline is gonna be different. So you're gonna have to rely on experience, knowledge of others, or just play around with your electronics as you're trolling around and try to find that thermocline. In particular, when you're trolling for trout, you want to find that thermocline and you want to make sure you figure out where those trout are going to be holding or suspended in the water and then target them at that depth. Now, coming in at tip number 5 is to fish shady areas and areas with a lot of cover. And this makes sense, right? You've got shade on the water or shady spots where you're just gonna have more shadows or there's more debris in the water, and areas where the trout can hold up behind boulders. Now, on any body of water, there's gonna be rocks, there's gonna be trees, there's gonna be debris in the water where those trout are gonna be able to hold up in softer pockets of water, but also shady areas where the water's just a little bit cooler, and those trout are gonna wanna go into those shadier areas because the water temperature is gonna be a lot lower than areas of the water where the sun is beating right down on it. So something that I do before I even make my first cast is to look around on the water that I'm fishing and try to figure out where's the shady spots, where's the pockets, where's the sun above me relevant to where I'm fishing, because the trout are gonna move in the water depending on maybe where those areas of shade or those boulders or that cover is. So you wanna get a glance of the water and see where those trout might be held up or where that shade is, and I would start casting in those areas first. And of course, in the heat of the summer, you definitely want to find some shade as well, because you don't want to be standing in the heat all day making cast after cast after cast. Find yourself some shade as well, because the trout want some shade and you're going to want some shade too. Now, coming in at tip number 4 is to fly fish the deeper pools. And on most rivers across this country or creeks, wherever you're fly fishing, those trout are going to be held up in the deeper pools and the deeper pockets of water. And as a fly fishing novice, those are the areas that I'm focusing on first, especially for stock trout. And on on river systems and creeks, you may also find some native fish as well. But when it comes to stock trout fishing, you definitely want to be fly fishing and targeting those deeper pools and those deeper areas. Now, in the morning time, it might be a top water bite that might be chasing some bugs. You might get a few busts in surface. And then as that water temperature starts to warm up, or if there's no shade, those trout are going to start to go down deeper into the water, get behind those boulders, find as much cover and shade as possible. So adjust your baits, your gear, your depth, and your positioning depending on the time of the day as you're progressing, or at nighttime if you're starting to see them bust surface again, then you know you can go target them in those deeper pools right at the top of the surface. Now, for me, I love fly fishing those deep pools as long as I don't hook the tree behind me. Don't ask me how I know. Now, tip number 3 is something we've already talked about in this video, and that is to fish deeper. And I'm not talking about just going from 5 feet to 10 feet. No, I'm talking about 10 feet all the way down to 20 to 30, 40, 50, and even deeper depending on the body of water that you're fishing where those trout are going to be hanging out. This is especially true when it comes to trolling for trout on big bodies of water. Those trout are going to start to get out of the top 10 feet of the water, and they're going to start going farther and farther down. Again, this is where you want to find the thermocline to find those trout, but you're going to want to fish a lot deeper. And most of the time in the summer, I'm targeting fish between 20 even to 60 feet down. You want to target that nice, cool, deep water, figure out where that thermocline is, and you want to target those trout with lots of bling and lots of color and lots of scent. But you got to fish deeper. And then from the bank, you're going to want to find deeper pools or deeper pockets near the bank where you can cast out to get to those trout. But if the body of your water that you're fishing is really shallow, you're going to have to, again, go find those areas, use Google Maps, use Onyx Maps, use your phone, and figure out topography and find out where those deeper pockets of water are on the body of water that you're fishing, and you're going to want to target those in particular. Now, tip number 2 is to go remote. And sometimes you just got to get out of those really packed, really crowded, popular summertime fishery areas. Go remote, get up to the mountains, get away from everybody, and go chase some stalker trout, even up into the deep part of the mountains where they stock trout. Now, most states in the country have stalking programs, and they will still stock really remote, really high elevation, deep or even shallow lakes and streams and creeks way up in the mountain ranges. And sometimes it's the best thing to do is just to go remote, get off the grid, grab your camping gear, go up for a night or two, get away from everybody to get after some really fun stock trout fishing bites, especially in some of the most cleanest alpine and high mountain lakes you've ever seen. Because firstly, one, you might be the only person at that lake, or maybe you're not going to see anybody all day. Secondly, that water is going to be gin clear. You're going to be able to see those trout from a long distance away from the bank where you can use spinners. I love fly fishing up on the high mountain lakes, even using some worms or some crawdads or even just leeches or random bugs that you can find along the bank. Those are some really fun times to go fishing. However, if you're going to go remote, make sure you got a GPS unit and you're telling somebody where you're going to go fishing, because there's always a chance you might get lost. In fact, because there's always a chance you might get lost. Don't ask me how I know. Because there's always a chance you might get lost. Don't ask me how I know. So now that we've gone through tips 10 through 2, well, what's tip number 1? That is to go fish early and go fish late. Probably one of the best reasons I love trout fishing in the summer is the early mornings, getting up there before the sunrise and getting that early top water bite. And then additionally, at the end of the day, as the sun is setting, really going after those trout, those aggressive feeders, those night feeders that are going after bugs along the surface. Those are some of the best times to go trout fishing. It's also the time when the trout are going to be most aggressive and most on the bite. So if you could only fish a couple hours or a little bit of time, go super early or super late. And that also gives you a chance to go nap during the middle of the day, take a little snoozer, take a breather, and then get back out there and go chase some stock trout. All right, guys, well, that is my top 10 summer stock trout fishing tips. Hope you guys got some great information and enjoyed today's video, and you took something away that you're going to be able to take out to the water with you the next time you go trout fishing. And if you're looking for additional summer trout fishing content, I got a video right here that's got a ton of information. It's going to help you catch more limits and bigger stock trout in the summer.